Welcome to the For Love and Money podcast, the show where business and social purpose meet to inspire a movement for positive change. Here's your host, Carolyn Butler-Madden.
My guest today is Elizabeth Tyler, co-founder and CEO of good.film, a platform that's using film and television to bring people back together. In a world where we're just becoming more divided, lonely, and politically polarised, Elizabeth is building a community for people who want more from the stories they spend time with. A place to discover ambitious films that say something about the world and to have real conversations about what those stories mean to us and reveal about us. Elizabeth's own story starts far away from the entertainment industry. She began in student activism and politics, running a campus campaign to switch to renewable energy, then working on a pivotal Tasmanian election campaign that helped stop a proposed pulp mill. Looking back, she calls it a sliding doors moment for Tasmania, one that set the state on a very different trajectory and one that also shaped her career. Over time, she became increasingly concerned about something deeper, not just environmental or social issues themselves, but the way we've stopped talking to each other across differences. That led her into creative-led advocacy and ultimately to co-founding good.film, reimagining film as a practical tool to rebuild connection, empathy, and dialogue. If you care about film, if you're worried about the divisions you see around you, or if you're just curious about how an entrepreneur turns a bold, purpose-led vision into a real investable business model, you're going to get a whole lot from this episode. So settle in. Here's my conversation with Elizabeth Tyler, co-founder and CEO of good.film. Elizabeth, welcome to the For Love and Money podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me here.
So we'll kick off with the first question every guest gets, which is, what's your view? Do you think there's a role for love in business?
Yeah, I do. I think that we should always start with love, and love can come across in a lot of different ways. It can be love of what you do, love of who you're working with, love of who you're working against sometimes. But yeah, I think as long as you can tap into that, it actually gives you a lot of creativity in your approach to how you want to do change making. Yeah.
And I'm excited to get into this conversation. Thanks, Elizabeth, because when I met you and you told me about what you were doing through good.film, it was so clear, the love part of it. And we will be exploring love and money. But yeah, I'm really excited for our listeners to learn about what you're doing because it is quite unusual. So before we get into good.film, for people meeting you for the first time, who is Elizabeth Tyler? Give us a bit of an insight into your background, your story, and, you know, the key moments that brought you here today as co-founder and managing director of good.film.
Right. Yeah, I started my career off in politics, actually. So I ran, even though good.film, we're working in entertainment, and I'll connect the dots there for you. My approach to change making was always through advocacy. So I started off at university, actually. I got involved with the UTS Environmental Collective and ended up running a campaign to switch our energy at UTS to renewables, which was one of the first campaigns that was run in Australia around that as a mission. And I also, what I really loved with that role was that I got to head up the food collective.
All right.
Yeah. And so we used to pack fruit and vegetable boxes for people. They pick them up every Thursday. And unknowingly, that work allowed me to be successful with the renewable energy campaign because our customers were both staff and students, admin, and we just had conversations with them when they'd come and pick up their fruit and veg. And sometimes we'd do like guerrilla marketing and we'd pack the fruit and veg up on like the concourse so that everybody would see it. I recycled a couch from downstairs. I got a coffee machine, and I just loved like having chats with people. And those chats built into relationships. And then when I started to advocate for renewable energy on campus, there was trust there between me and the various levels of the administration. And so it ended up being a successful campaign. But I don't think it would have been successful if I hadn't run that food co-op and built those relationships. So I think very early on, I started to realize that anything we want to do is based on first having a vision of what it looks like when we've achieved the goal. Like, so rather than it being opposition to something or someone, it's like, what does the world look like? And then a community kind of builds around that naturally. And then you sort of just work your way through the different challenges or obstacles to get there. And so I think it's not that I went about knowing that at the start, but having that experience at UTS as the convener kind of started to shape my approach to everything that I do. So I went into politics.
Can I just stop you there? Because that's fascinating to me, right? It's like, you know, you said you weren't aware that you hadn't broken it down. You hadn't broken it down analytically. But ultimately, you were creating comfortable spaces, you know, non-challenging spaces where you could connect with people and build that trust. And that's a thread that continues today.
I think that a lot of people, even after the Voice vote in Australia, I think a lot of people realise that it is the long-term work of being engaged in your community that leads to radical change in outcomes. You can't start with the radical change in outcomes. You have to start with the relationships. And the analysis about where that movement fell over sort of landed there.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a huge learning, and that's something that obviously we hadn't done with the Voice effectively enough. So anyway, I interrupted your flow, so continue on.
Yeah, so I went into politics. I'm from Tasmania, and I love Tasmania. I feel really privileged to have grown up there. And after I finished my degree, I went back to Tassie, and that was when the pulp mill was going to be built on the Tamar Valley, the Tamar River in the Tamar Valley. And I just started volunteering for the local member of parliament who had a position against the pulp mill because it was, it was financially unsustainable. It was environmentally unsustainable. It was the wrong direction for Tasmania. This is like 2010. And I started volunteering and a job came up. I applied for the job. I got the job. And that was pivotal for me in my career. One, because it was back in Tassie, but second was because of who I was working for, Kim Booth, a member of parliament down there. He remains like a close friend and mentor. And he is just one of those remarkable men that knows how to work with people, is really strategic and really smart. And I learned so much working with him. And we were successful because of all of the community organising that was happening again in Tasmania and Launceston specifically. The pulp mill didn't go ahead. And now looking back, and I have a lot of friends or relatives that visit Tasmania, they're like, oh, it's such a beautiful place. And Launceston's gorgeous. And you realise, people maybe vaguely heard about the pulp mill, but you realise that if it had gone ahead, like Tassie would have taken a completely different direction.
A sliding doors moment.
A totally sliding doors moment for Tasmania. It's the same with the old growth forestry, and Mona obviously got built and it took us in a different direction. But I think it's being at that age now where you can look back and you go, oh, that made such a difference. That made a huge difference. And it wasn't me by myself, it was everybody. But it was, it took Tasmania in a direction and a vision that we all had for it, which was this beautiful island where people would want to visit and try the food and try the wine and experience nature. And that's what it is now.
And it's stunning. It's stunning. I've been there once and I really want to get back there. And Launceston is beautiful.
Yeah. So that was the sort of political part of my career. I then went into working more in creative-led advocacy, and that started when I started to dip my toe into storytelling. And actually during that time in politics, that's when social media was on the rise. And I started to see the benefits because we could sort of bypass traditional media and go straight to our community through socials, but also starting to see what we're really familiar with now of like the echo chambers and polarisation and this sort of shouting match that we have online. And so that was sort of bubbling away in the background as I started to get more involved in creative storytelling and creative campaigning, and led me to co-found good.film, which is what I'm doing today, which is using films and TV and stories to bring us back together.
And so tell me, thank you for sharing that background, and tell me, you jumped into, and then I founded good.film. But what was the catalyst? I mean, obviously you'd become a bit of an activist for change, but was there a particular catalyst that actually, dropped that moment for you?
Yeah, I think it was multiple arguments with my co-founder around I used to, I guess, believe in some ways that the ends justified the means. And then he would argue that the means, it's all about the means, it's all about the process. And the more we spoke and talked and explored this sort of bigger philosophical question, and at the same time, I was thinking, we have this polarization, and now I've got the data around declining social cohesion, loneliness, all of these underlying factors that Australia is facing, other Western democracies are facing, are, I think, like fundamental problems. They stop progress on everything else.
Yeah.
And as much as I love politics is the wrong place to solve that question right now. It just can't. It doesn't have the infrastructure or the culture. And so we were starting to think, what is it that we still share? So it was kind of like this problem that we were talking about and the way of going about making change. So these bigger questions, and then thinking, okay, what do we still do together? What do we still share? And landing and realizing, luckily, it's something that's also really fun, which is film, where we come together and we share a story for a couple of hours. And if we watch it in cinema, we watch it with strangers. And it gives us a shared narrative and anchor point to have really interesting conversations around. And so it's not about, I think earlier in my career, it was very much of, creating a specific change that I wanted to see. And now with age, humility, and also identifying that the fundamental problem isn't ideas. The fundamental problem is that we don't talk to one another anymore. And so really starting to address that and going, okay, how can we just foster conversation and foster community through something that's like a really fun activity that's available to all of us?
And I want to pick that up, but I just want to go back because you were talking about conversations with your co-founder. So what I'm curious to understand is, were you trying to figure out what business you could create or what initiative you could lead that solved the problems of society that you were concerned about?
Yeah, I think for me, definitely that's what it was. It was sort of getting a sense of these feel like I'm passionate about the environment. I've always cared about that. But like, we can't solve environment if we're not talking to one another. So the problem underneath that is this dialogue that we're lacking. And so for me, it's always going, but what is, what's the thing underneath that? What's the thing underneath that? And getting to that fundamental problem and then building it back up from there.
I love that. I mean, that to me is, you just got really clear on your purpose. What is the outcome that you want to create? And then you looked at, well, how do we do it?
Yeah.
Well, most people start with what they do.
Yeah.
And then they look for a purpose within there, which is fine. Some find it, but you've actually gone the purest route, which is, here's the outcome. Here's what we want to achieve. Here's the problem, but not just the problem. Here's the opportunity. And that's the big picture thinking that purpose is all about. And that's what I realized when I first met you and you first told me about what you were doing. And I thought I love, we've got a few guests on this podcast who have done that, but not that many, right? And that is the opportunity going forward. So tell us about good.film, and perhaps you could explain it. You've talked a little bit about the idea behind it, but what's the fundamental truth that it sits on?
What do you mean by that question?
What's the underlying truth that anchors what you're doing with good.film?
That storytelling, when it's done right, it creates emotion for us. Like going back to the early question of love, actually, like sometimes it's really hard to feel emotions, right? Like we're buffeted all the time and we're having to like hold stuff together, and like expressing emotion is very vulnerable. It takes a lot of energy,
Yep.
as women know. And then understanding what's motivating that emotion is another kind of piece of work that we need to do. And I think what film does for us is that if it's done well, or TV shows or anything, you just feel, right? Like it actually, I mean, it creates all of these, you know, natural reactions in our brain. So it's just like a really quick, fast opening to curiosity, to empathy, to love, to hope, humor. And it's at that point, once we're a little bit open, that we're just a little bit more able to see things from different perspectives, or we just care, you know, if you get really excited about a character and you're just like, why did she do that? Like, and maybe it frustrates you or irritates you, and you're just like, but why? Like, what is it about her? And you sort of get into her story, and it starts to help you understand why you're having a strong feeling. So it's a really great way to learn and connect with others. But the fundamental truth is that stories, you know, they're made to make us feel emotions, and we need an emotion to make a decision. We need an emotion to know what we think. Like, the emotion is the first thing that happens, even if we're not aware of it.
Absolutely. And as you're talking about it, it makes me think, you know, when we take a position on something and you've got both sides of the equation, someone who's a yes, someone who's a no for whatever the issue may be, we love to simplify those stories. And what film does is it allows you to dive into the complexity of an issue and of people, but in a non-threatening way, because it's not personal, it's someone else. So you can actually kind of remove yourself a little bit, but also lean into it. It's actually amazing because it can cut through barriers that ordinary conversations without that sort of third piece.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think as well, like, just on the sort of the change mechanic of what we're trying to do as well, I feel like, I don't know, maybe it was this sort of advocacy piece where we moved to petitions or we moved to online and we had to take a position pretty quickly on things. Yes or no, like that sort of sparked me thinking when you said yes or no. And actually, like, one of the best pieces of advice I got given when I was struggling to make a decision was like, do you need to make a decision? Like, do you actually need to make a decision on this right now? How
Right.
long can you delay making a decision? And that's like such a great piece of advice. Most things where we think we need to say yes or no, we actually don't need to make a position. Like, we can actually just keep on exploring. Like,
Yeah.
we're not the decision maker often. We're not being asked to land on either side, except by, like, you know, players that maybe don't have our best interests in mind. So I think, yeah, film, like you said, it adds that complexity back into the story. And if you just like have fun chatting around and exploring what people think of different characters or their motivations, you start to get into really interesting conversation.
That's so true, what you were saying about not having to take a definitive position. And I think, you know, a lot of people will judge you if you don't and say, you can't sit on the fence on this. But I don't know if it's sitting on the fence or if it's holding space for empathy to try and understand. And as hard as it can be on some issues to do that, you know, it's the key to bridging the divides that are getting deeper and more entrenched. So, yeah, it's amazing. So tell us, Elizabeth, how do you describe good.film today to someone who's never heard of it?
Good.film is a community first and foremost. So we're building a community around people that want to hear and discover, you know, great, ambitious entertainment and stories. And that can range from blockbusters to Oscar nominations or winners like indie films to independent documentaries. Our definition of impact entertainment is ambitious film that has something to say about the world, and it's worth your time. So we're building a community of people that just want to hear about those stories, go and watch them in cinema, talk about them. And then the business model itself is that because we've carved out this particular community that wants to hear about these stories, we work with producers and distributors to make sure if they have a film on their slate, our audience hears about that film. And then we sort of organize events and things like that around them.
Okay, so as the community, do I subscribe to it? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, you subscribe. We've built a platform. So we've actually, the first thing we did when we were building out what is impact entertainment, we actually defined the market because it hadn't been defined, or it's got different definitions. And so we developed our own proprietary algorithm that basically looks at every piece of content that's out there and categorizes it with a social theme. And what that allowed us to do, along with our own work of sort of writing guides on different films, was sort of create this category of entertainment, which we're calling impact entertainment. So you can subscribe to our emails, or you could sign up to the platform where you can create like watch lists for yourselves. You can share that with friends, or you can watch trailers of films that you might like, and you can actually discover film. Say if you're really passionate about female empowerment, you can add that category along with maybe you subscribe to Netflix and maybe you really like thriller as a genre. And so you can sort of create this new algorithm for yourself that surfaces content that's got something to say about the world. On
brilliant.
anything else. Yeah.
Brilliant. And do you pay to be part of this community?
No, you don't pay. It's free to be part of it. Where we get paid to market the films from producers and distributors, or create strategies and market. That's where we get a service fee there. And then if you go and watch the film in cinema, we've actually got some incredible partnerships in place with the cinema chains in Australia. So you can buy a cinema ticket through us, and we'll take a clip on that ticket sale, but we'll also donate $1 to a cause of your choice.
God, it's win-win-win all round.
I know. It feels a little too good to be true. And actually, when we did our marketing, we were like, people are going to think this is a bit of a scam, because it was like, it's like the tickets are cheaper. They donate $1 and you get to find out about great films. And it was just like, oh, yeah. I think though that was where the business really came together, because we were solving a problem for the industry as well, which is that discoverability. It's really hard now. Like it used to be quite straightforward. There was only a few publications where you'd advertise. People weren't, on different channels and their socials and receiving heaps of different information. But now it's quite complex to promote a film with a more interesting message, if you like, if it's not just a blockbuster.
Yeah.
And so because we're promoting those films as well, and that's solving a key industry problem, we've been able to develop these really fantastic partnerships with cinemas and distributors and producers.
Yeah, okay.
And making it really unique. And I didn't realize that at the start, I guess, but it's sort of evolved. We've evolved together. Yeah.
It's amazing. And it's amazing how when you're creating something new, I mean, it's a new model that you're creating, a new genre of films, and how it's innovation in action, right? And how you see value come out of it. And yeah, it's not the normal transaction that people expect. So what do you think that might be a bit of a barrier?
What's that?
That people think it's too good to be true.
Definitely some of our marketing messaging was difficult to sort of, it ended up being more of a challenge than an opportunity when it came to marketing, which was interesting. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how we grow and how we continue to learn from that. But I think I think overall it's an opportunity. Like when you can align your mission with someone else's and you can solve problems for other people.
Yeah.
I think that's what, from everything I've learned, that's what makes a successful business in the long run.
100%. And so I want to dive a little bit deeper into the community part of things. So you sign up, you put in your preferences on the kind of issues that you're interested in and the genres that you like. So how does that community part come into it? How does that come into play?
So there's the most basic level, which is you'll get an email about what we recommend you see in cinema, or often we'll get like free double passes that we give away in competitions, which are really fun. We just did one for The Kiss of the Spider Woman, which is a musical. And so we asked our community, we're like, we've got a few double passes to give away. If you're keen to go and see the film, like tell us which musical moved you and why. And so we had these amazing responses about people watching Wicked as a musical and how that like changed how they thought about, different like stories and things. So we'll have that. And so you'll get an email. Obviously, socials is really big, Instagram and TikTok. A lot of people hear about us through that. The sort of the tier up, which is what we're working on now, is you can actually tag films. So what we're hoping is that as we build a community of people that like, when you see something and you want someone else to have watched it?
Yes.
That you can talk
all
about?
All the time.
That's the problem that we're solving now with the different features that we've got. One of them is if you watch, say, one of my favorite films is I'm Your Man, which is kind of like Her, the one about AI, like the Joaquin Phoenix one that was 2013, but it's from a female perspective. So it's like a male robot, if you like, and it's her. It's a challenge with is it really love if he's just perfect kind of thing? Whereas I feel like the guy was like, she's perfect. I'm in love. And like taking this question in a really different way. And I really love it. Not many people have seen it, even though it's a really fantastic film. It just didn't have the release it deserved.
Yeah.
And so I can tag that film on the platform with female empowerment. That'll bump it up in our algorithm. And so then if more people tag it, it'll like surface higher than, say, other films. So that's one way that you might discover films that you otherwise wouldn't discover on Netflix or Amazon, because I guess a community of people that is interested in other people watching really interesting entertainment is bumping it up in the algorithm.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you can share it. You can put it onto you can share it with me so that it goes on my watch list.
Yeah.
Which is the other way that we're trying to build community around specific films and TV shows.
Yeah, right. And so it's not just, is it just cinema-based movies, or do you link to the major platforms, streaming platforms as well?
So on the platform itself, I guess is our business model is our beachhead is cinema, if you like. The best way to say it is that way, because it really aligns with my mission of bringing people together into conversation. And I just am really passionate about it. But on the platform itself, obviously not everyone goes to cinema all the time. On the platform itself, we have all the titles that are on every single streaming platform. So another real benefit of it is if you spend like a couple of hours creating your watch list there, you can actually filter it by basically I've got a list of like 150 films that I want to watch, but I can see that 70 of them are on Netflix, but 30 of them are on SBS.
Yeah.
I don't have any money for a month or two. I can just like go to SBS and the titles are all there. And a lot of the times they're duplicate, that streamers have them. So you can sort of find ways to manage your subscriptions really well through that too.
I love this. I love everything about this. And something comes to mind as well, this idea of how films can, spark conversations and shift perspectives. But also, I remember, have you heard of Outland Denim?
No.
So they're a jeans company that started a few years ago, but it started and it's become a global fashion brand. It's Australian. It became a global fashion brand because Meghan Markle wore them when she came to Australia with Prince Harry. But it was started by James Bartle, who was a motocross champion, Australian motocross champion. And he went to Cambodia and he was exposed to sex trafficking. I'd go back to the film. He watched Liam Neeson's film Taken.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And it blew his mind.
Yeah.
And then he went to Cambodia. But the film, and then going to Cambodia, he started Outland Denim. He was not in the fashion business at all. He had no experience there. And it's become a global fashion brand. And that's the power of these kind of films that can raise awareness about things as well as shifting perspectives. So I think what you're building is so powerful and so accessible and has so much value. I love it, love it, love it, love it. And see, totally it's linked to love, and I'm glad you've got the money part sorted out as well.
Enjoying the podcast? If you're looking for more inspiration, head to our website, thecauseeffect.com.au, for more resources on how you can start using your business as a force for good. Or buy the For Love and Money book. Every copy sold allows us to protect 1 square metre of rainforest.
Tell me, you're now part of the Tech Ready Women program. Congratulations, which is supported by Westpac. That's just happened recently, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think we started the program about 4 weeks ago.
So what do you think that will unlock for you as a founder?
Quite a few things. I mean, Tech Ready Women is a great program for any female entrepreneur. I can't recommend it highly enough just from this 4 weeks. Really what their mission is to get female entrepreneurs funded. So I'm about to start to open up my first safe round for the business. And so Tech Ready Women was a really good program for me to go into to make sure I had, everything in place. There were other women that have already raised, sort of learned from their mistakes and successes. And also just have like a cohort of people going, oh gosh, like it's our first pitch. Like what's that like? And practicing, with others that are in your kind of like in your team, I guess. And so, there's a lot of startup programs that maybe aren't focused just on fundraising. They're focused on other things. So it was just a really good alignment and timing for me in joining that program. But I think, like, on a personal level, what I'm really getting out of it is, like, as an entrepreneur, sometimes you talk to friends that aren't entrepreneurs, and you're like, oh God, like this and that, and like this stress and that stress. And they're like, why don't you just get a job? Like, you could get a fairly good job. You could come on more holidays. And they're saying it out of care for you, but it's like it's like there's something about like people that are entrepreneurs, and you just get it. You're like, okay, it's really hard, but there's like these huge highs that you get as well from pushing something forward and like being like, I can't face that. I don't know how to deal with that obstacle or that challenge and overcoming it. And then what I really love about it, probably I would actually say it's much more helpful as a community than even working in not-for-profits and certainly politics. It's actually a community of people that know what it's like to be really lonely, to like work really hard, to have an idea that no one understands at first, to feel like a bit of a crazy person. And they're all like very helpful. And I think because they're all really skilled, of course it's competitive, but it's not, it's like everyone's sort of trying to lift one another up. Like we're all very clear about our separate missions. So I actually, that's my favorite part of it, is the women that I meet through that. I'm like, you guys are just awesome. And yeah, I feel like I can be ambitious and it's not a threat.
You shared a story with me the other day when we spoke about pitching as part of the Tech Ready Women program, and something that happened, which I love, and I would love you to share with our listeners.
Yes. Oh my God. This is one of the best stories. So I did my first public pitch last week. It was through Tech Ready Women, hosted it and organized it. It was called the Found Her Summit, which was all about bringing entrepreneurs and investors together. And I was nervous about pitching because I hadn't done it to a room before. And I was actually about to pull out. Like I was sitting next to this woman who I didn't know. And I was like, she's like, oh, who are you? And she was trying to make conversation. And I was like, I'm sorry, I just can't engage because I'm just thinking about whether or not I want to pitch or not. And she's like, oh, what's going on? Like, why don't you want to pitch? And I said, I just don't know who's in the room. I don't know, And she's like, you've got to pitch, just pitch. And so I was like, okay. So I got up and I pitched and it went okay. It was my first time, lots of learnings. But I sat back down and she started scribbling furiously on like a piece of paper. And at the top, in this gorgeous cursive handwriting, she's like, you never know who's in the room and you never know who's sitting next to you. And then she just started to list a bunch of names, like from VCs to angel investors to people that I should speak to about the business and what I'm building, and just gave it to me, I guess, this really generous gesture, and was like, I can intro you to whoever, or you can just reach out or whatever you like. And it was just, it's a great example of what I was just talking about, is that, that community of women is just really, it's like transforming me and how I want to be in the world as well.
Oh my God. I get goosebumps hearing that story. I think it's beautiful, and it just shows what that community is about. So who was she? Was she someone pitching as well, or?
No, she wasn't. She's someone that's got her own business, but she also works with a lot of VCs and investors, I think, to sort of just, I guess the network that everyone's always looking for, like a good idea or a good business. And so sharing that information. Yeah, but it's like, she's got my fridge now. I've got that, and I've got another mentor, Sheena, who I just adore. And she's just an amazing woman if anyone comes across her. And I've got Call Sheena on my fridge.
Yeah.
As a reminder to go actually back to your love point, go towards love. Like if people show you love and kindness, just go towards it as much as possible, and don't try and I guess avoid people that are, I think I used to think that people that being challenged is good, but I used to be really attracted to someone that could really like challenge me or break down everything. And sometimes it's really good, but more often than not, like if you go towards love and generosity, those people are equally able to challenge you, but to do it in a much more helpful way. And so I now all the time on my fridge, whenever I experience that, I'm like, stick that on the fridge. Like, call Sheena. I stuck her note, the handwritten note there. And I just look to that of like, okay, I could just call someone. Yeah.
And that's such wise advice, I think, particularly when you're building something that's different that's new.
Yeah.
Because anybody can poke holes in it. You know, when it hasn't been done before, you're more likely to get someone poking the holes than telling you why it's important that you figure out how to overcome the hurdles.
Yeah. I think you're totally right. And I didn't realize that at the start. And that's something sort of a couple of years in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really starting to land.
Something else you shared with me was how you're learning to ask for help.
Mm.
Can you share a little bit about that?
I mean, it's very related to that point around going towards the love. I think I really prided myself in my early career on almost like not needing help, I'd say. And that's like, we all have backgrounds. And so when I started, I got accepted into the UCLA Anderson MBA program. I got to a point in my career where I was like, I want to do these bigger things. And I could see what they were, but I couldn't, I just didn't have the skills to do it. And I think working in politics and not-for-profits is amazing, but oftentimes the organization, a lot of the resources go towards the outcome rather than the people. And so you see a really high burn rate in those spaces because there's not a lot of investment or capacity to invest in people.
Yeah.
And so I decided, you know what, I don't want to be continually frustrated by not being able to achieve what I want to achieve. So I applied for and got into UCLA Anderson program, which I love. I love that school. And one of the first questions, when you start, especially in America in the culture, like it's this incredible culture where they always ask, oh, how can I help? And that question of like, how can I help? I often didn't have an answer because I hadn't actually allowed myself to feel like where I needed help. But going through that program and being a part of a cohort, once again, being part of a cohort of brilliant people where I didn't have to be a leader, I could be a follower, and I could start to do all of this sort of personal self-development. And it was really invested, like they put a lot of investment and coaching into that in the part of the program. And I started to try and actually started to go, okay, where do I need help? Like, can I let myself feel like I need help? Because it's actually quite vulnerable. I find it quite vulnerable needing help.
Same. And that's why I'm asking you this, because I think a lot of people, a lot of women especially, a lot of people, but also a lot of women.
Yeah, because you first have to feel a little bit out of control, right? Like if you need help, you have to be feeling a negative emotion often, sadness, exhaustion, confusion. Like you have to feel something that's very uncomfortable before you can even go, oh, I think I need help with this.
Yeah.
So I think that was like the first part of that journey for me, was being part of that program, working with, everyone that's doing an MBA is sort of looking for that self-development and pretty keen to engage in that space, but also very skilled and very capable.
Yeah.
So for people that were very skilled and very capable, asking for help and like achieving more because of it as well was really great to be part of that. So yeah, feeling the negative emotion, identifying what it is that's making me feel that way, and then starting to build a Rolodex of different people that you can go to that all have different skill sets. And you start to, the more you lean into it, you can go, oh, like he's really great with organizational questions. Like I'm going to go to him. He's really great at sales. I'm going to go to him. She's really terrific at pitching. I'm going to go to her. Like, so it's sort of, then you meet people, you sort of start to go, oh, wow, you're really skilled in asking profound questions. And if I want to ask those questions and pull out from clients what their core problem is, maybe I'll go to you because you're really skilled in that space and you could help me if I get stuck or I feel like I can't get to the answer. So you start to kind of see people in both where they're really skilled at when you meet them, like what their special superpower is.
Yeah.
And that makes those relationships more exciting as well in a way, because you're looking for that in other people.
I love that. I love it. And so how has adopting that mindset changed things for you?
I've got a really great advisory board is a really tangible outcome from that. Like the advisory board that I've got, they're all incredibly skilled and talented. And then they've all helped me, like genuinely helped me in one way or another, so I can trust them.
Yeah.
So that's a really tangible outcome, which I don't think I would have been able to build, or I would have built it very differently before.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah. And the second thing is I think you build better teams because you're not afraid of people that are better at stuff than you are. You're actually looking for it.
Awesome.
So I think those are the two things that really, in terms of outcomes, that's where it gets you.
Wonderful. Love it, love it, love it. And like something I take out of that as well is that question, how can I help? Like whenever you meet someone, by just asking that question, number one, sometimes they see value that you don't recognize in yourself. And number two, it almost always leads to the response, well, how can I help you?
Mm.
And, through that interaction, you've suddenly got much more supportive relationship than a transactional one. Elizabeth, let's talk about the Impact Investment Summit. So you've been invited to organise the closing plenary and to facilitate the panel. Is that right?
Yeah. So for the last couple of years, I've been talking to different foundations and philanthropy about the power of film. If we're talking about I think slowly people are realizing that declining social cohesion, polarisation, these are big issues, loneliness, these are big issues. I think that conversation is starting, and it's probably accelerating with AI and different technological changes. And so as I've been talking about our mission and talking about the opportunity of film being a solution to that. And actually, there was a study done by UTS to try and find a solution for building constructive dialogue. And there's actually nothing happening. There's nothing happening really in Australia that's focused just on that as a mission of building those skills of talking to people that might have different opinions, life perspectives to yours. And also mixing communities. Like what I've noticed is there's a lot of work in community, but the community is relatively homogenous, right? And so we're not bringing people in on a level playing field, an audience, where we have different socioeconomic backgrounds. Often that's not measured. I think classes are really, really important that we're not talking about enough.
Yeah.
Socioeconomic diversity as well as cultural diversity. Because actually, in a globalized world, we can be from very different cultures, but actually live very similar lives.
Yeah.
Whereas class is actually a huge divider. And when it comes to social cohesion in Australia, class is the biggest delta, if you like, around people's perspectives around immigration or housing or anything like that. If you're struggling financially, it's really hard to, you feel like you're competing.
Yeah.
It's because you're racist. So, long-winded story. I think film, it brings us together as an audience, and it's $20 to go to the cinema. It's not $100 to go and see a play. You don't need to have a deep understanding of art to enjoy a film. Like, it's not elite. So basically for the Impact Investment Summit, they're going to be talking a lot about, what AI is doing to society, issues like polarisation and social cohesion. And I've been asked to coordinate or build the closing plenary conversation where we're talking about those issues and talking about how film might actually be the answer or one of the answers to these problems. And it's really exciting because film has never been approached like that before. Film has been approached in Australia from we make a film about, working on a couple of films that are looking at coercive control.
Yeah.
And previously, the way that we've used film as an impact tool before has been to achieve a certain outcome from that film. So this film is about coercive control. We want to raise awareness, or we want to stop financial abuse, or whatever it is, which are all really important outcomes. But what I'm doing with good.film is I'm putting film into a different class, saying actually this can address a much wider problem, and it can be a long-term one. There's not just one film, and we have to rely on just one film in achieving all this.
Yeah.
We can build a community and a conversation.
Yeah.
Maybe there's 10 films over the next 3 years that explore coercive control, gender, masculinity, all the different complexities that go towards and, that contribute to the horrendous violence that we see towards women. Complex, and you need lots of different perspectives and angles and films and voices and conversations to really understand it. And so when we position film in that way, we can have a much larger impact, but it's over a longer term. So the closing plenary conversation is going to be around that. And I'm really excited.
When is it? When is the Impact Investment Summit?
The end of March. I think it's the 29th of March. It's at the ICC in Sydney.
Okay, we'll include some links.
Yeah.
Can anybody go to that?
Yeah, I think you do have to pay.
Yeah.
But anyone can attend. And it's a really great space, kind of at the cutting edge of both philanthropy, but also how philanthropy is getting into impact investment and different approaches that you can use to sort of make change through investment rather than just grants and philanthropy.
Brilliant, brilliant. We'll include links to that. I want you to touch on something. If someone listening to this says, yeah, but, we see all that division in America, but we don't have it here in Australia, what would your response to that be?
Yeah, I think we don't have the polarization that you see in America. We do have it online, and I think the algorithms would like for us to believe that we're more polarized than we are in Australia. But the data that I'm looking to is what's being produced by the Scanlon Foundation, which is the social cohesion. So they've been tracking social cohesion, which relies on a bunch of different metrics in Australia since 2007. So it's an incredible body of research. It's almost been going for 20 years. And the long and short of it is that over the last 20 years, social cohesion has declined by about 20% in Australia. So we're not at the point of America in terms of just complete polarization, thankfully. But I think we've all felt it in different ways, feel it in different ways. We just feel more isolated from one another, and we feel more scared to have conversations that are difficult with one another because of a variety of things, including, cancel culture.
Yeah.
And this need to sort of fly your flag on every issue. And then it's compounded by the socioeconomic division that's increasing in Australia as well. So all of the trends are pointing to it accelerating, I would say, unless we come up with more solutions and a better culture around having complex conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so vitally important today. Elizabeth's dream, 5 years from now, if you could, achieve your dream goal through what you're doing with good.film and beyond, whatever it is, what would you like? What's the vision?
Yes, I love this question. The vision is actually that once a month or so, we go to the cinema. You either walk or you drive, you go to your local cinema and you watch a film and you feel like you can go by yourself or you can go with a friend. And oftentimes it's Australian stories. We don't have very many Australian stories, but it's because we're going to the cinema more, the market improves, more investment can go into Australian stories. We can understand more about our culture and our country and who we are as a people and explore that. And that you'd be like, oh, I just saw, what's a great reference? I just saw Begonia at the cinema. And it's very likely that someone has also seen that too, because more of us are watching the same film and TV. We're not all on our own algorithms at home watching it individually, but we're watching a similar piece of content. We're having the water cooler moment. Have a lot more of, right? So that's the vision, is that we're all going about once a month to the cinema. When we say that we've seen something, someone else has seen it, and we can have a conversation about it. And then we can talk about, what does it mean? Like, how did it explore loneliness in society? Like, how did this film explore that? And what does that mean for us and how we're living? And have really interesting conversations around it. Yeah, and that's happening in Australia, but that's happening in the UK, that's happening in America. I plan to take good.film global. I think the
Yes.
market. And that you're part of a community and a culture that's, I guess, prides yourself on your ability to have complex conversations with someone that has a different opinion to you.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Now, before I give you the last word to say anything further you'd like to close with, I just want to ask, how can people support you? Like, what are some ways that someone listening to this, if they go, okay, obviously I'm going to go onto the platform. Surely everyone from here is going to subscribe to the platform. I just did earlier today. But how else can people support your work?
Great question. I think there's a lot of opportunities with the film specifically that we're working on. So oftentimes we're building micro campaigns, if you like, around the film specifically. And that's a great way if you want to have a chance to work with film as a medium for change, work with incredible filmmakers and storytellers and get a chance to be part of something with good.film. That's a great way to get involved in those specific films and campaigns. I think the other thing that you can just do to support our work is talk about us more, like share films. Actually, the best thing you can do is go to our platform, create a watch list and share a film from our platform with someone else to start to build that community, that connection through film. That's actually the one ask that I would have for everyone, is build a watch list of at least 10 films, share a couple of favorites with people that you haven't spoken to for a while, and have a conversation about film.
Oh, fantastic. I'm going to do exactly that after this. Elizabeth, thank you so much. Thank you for what you're doing with good.film. Thank you for your passion and your commitment to, change, to create positive change. Good luck with good.film. I look forward to following your journey and, hopefully continuing to support you in whatever way, maybe by just a watch list. I'd like to ask you to close the show out with any last words, invitations to our listeners or whatever it may be. But yes.
Oh, thanks. I mean, my last words are thank you to you for this work that you're doing and for having these conversations with us, founders and entrepreneurs and change makers. I think it's really valuable, and I loved meeting you, I guess, and I've just loved how this has evolved. So my last word is thank you, and for leading with love. I think that's a really great way to frame everything. Yeah, go to the cinema. That's my last words. Go to the cinema. You haven't been for months. Pick a film. Die My Love is out in cinema at the moment. Great film about postnatal depression. It's got great reviews. It looks like, I haven't seen it yet myself, but it looks like it's going to be a really fantastic story. Buy a ticket, go and see it at one of your local cinemas.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the For Love and Money podcast. If you'd like to take a deeper dive into the purpose movement, visit us at thecauseeffect.com.au. And remember, doing good is good for business. So if you're not doing good, then what are you doing?